Hi, I'm Steve Shelburne, owner and operator of Shelburne RV here in beautiful Cleveland, Tennessee. Okay, so Lewis and I are working on 2006 Winnebago Voyager with a Coleman Basement Air, and the customer brought it in with a compressor issue. So let me show you what we kind of found out. All right, so Lewis and I got over here checking all the power. And as you can see, this one here, this is a 2012 model basement air, so it does have the newer style control board. It is updated on the relays, but what we found out was on the black wire right there, that compressor is pulling 40 amps and tripping out and causing the unit to lock out. So we're going to have to go ahead. We did check both capacitors. They are checking out at 35 UF, and so they are good. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and pull the unit out, which entails pulling the trunk line. You got to pull the wires loose there. The lifeline cable's got to come loose, and then right up there you got a few bracketry right there, and then there's some bolts underneath that'll kind of let this bracket come down just a little bit, and then we're going to pull this unit out. Let's tear into it. So obviously we've made sure that the 120 volt power is disconnected from the coach, and I have found that this 90-degree bit adapter for my drill works really good for pulling the trunk line off. Once the bracket's off on the trunk line, then that's the only thing that secures the upward trunk to the unit. Let's go ahead and pull this cover off, and let's pull this cover off exposed so we can expose these compressors. I'm going to expose these compressors. All right, so the biggest thing I'm looking for, does it look like we have any leaks anywhere? We're looking for oil, maybe leaking out of one of the lines, oil around the compressor. Now you can see these compressors actually look fairly new. I mean, they don't look like they're that old. Obviously with an 07 they are, but they don't have a lot of oil or anything of that nature. But what caused that compressor to burn up? Was it a bad compressor? Was it a leaking line? I mean, Lewis, do you see any oil? I'm not seeing any oil that stands out. It looks like it's been leaking or has been leaking at some point.
Clean and dry.
Yeah, and the coils ain't collect a lot of dirt, so typically we would look at the coils and just make sure that there's no oil residue in the coils. But obviously this is just a filter not being cleaned issue. So I'm not seeing anything there. So we're gonna get some power hooked up to it. We've got a test box. I'll show you guys how we do that. All right, so I've got my meter out here, and I've actually pulled the wires off the top of the cap of the motor, and you can see they're kind of set up in a triangle. And so basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ohm across this one and this one, this one and this one, and this one and this one. And then whatever ohms I have, I'm gonna write down on this piece of paper. So you can see how I did my triangle. Between here and here, I had 1.7. Between here and here, I had 2.1. And between there and there, I had 0.8. Now, typically, checking the windings in the compressor, this 0.8 and this 1.7 added together should not be any more than that 2.1. This one here, when we do that, obviously you can see the math works out at 2.5. So we do have a winding problem with the compressor. So at this point now, what Lewis and I are gonna do is we're gonna hook our machine to it, put a tap on it, hook our machine to it, and see if it's even got any Freon. If it does have Freon, then we know it's got a bad compressor. If it doesn't have Freon, then we know the Freon leaked out and we've got a leak that caused the compressor to go bad. So we're gonna do that next. Okay, so we got our clamp that we clamped on there, hooked the machine to it, vacuumed it out. There was a full charge in this system, so we do know now that we had a bad compressor. I have looked to see if we do have a compressor available. Unfortunately, we do not. This is a 410A system. So fortunately, in a lot of the newer units that we get in that have had some coil problems with Freon, the compressors are still good, but the Freon would leak out of them. And I saved those compressors. This one here is matched with the capacitor, which is 50 UF. So we're gonna sweat this one into that unit, and we're gonna do that now. Okay, so one thing that we do like to do while we're this far into it, this old style bearing that rides on the fan motor right there, this is an old oil style bearing. And those things give us problems over the years of doing this. So we always change those out with a sealed ball bearing style. So that's what Lewis is changing that now. Okay, so I've got the new compressor seated up in here, and you can see I've got to do a little trimming right here, and I'm gonna swedge that, and then we'll get that brazed in, and then obviously same thing here. I'm gonna have to do a little swedge in there to get that pipe to fit in there. And then you can see where I left the wires on. That way I can tell when I go to wire it. Just kind of put it back together, but let's get it all brazed up. All right, so I kind of use this tool right here, and it's got several different style dies depending on what size tubing you're using. And basically you just put that on there and it opens that, swedges that for you. So I'll get this pipe kind of This one here is going to have to be cut down just a little bit so I can make it work. And then we'll swedge that pipe and make sure it fits, and then we'll go to brazing everything. Okay, got those swedged, so we're ready to braze in. All right, then we use our braze in tap. I'm actually going to cut a little bit off it because I don't like the stems being so long that they vibrate. They can sometimes vibrate loose and then fracture, cause a problem. So I usually cut them down a little bit just to make them where I don't have to worry about an issue there. All right, so we'll let that cool down for a few minutes, and then I'm going to put some nitrogen in it and do a pressure test just to make sure, pressure drop test for 15 minutes just to verify we don't have any leaks. Spray test all my fittings, and then we'll be good to go. We'll vacuum it down after that. All right, so we've got it all vacuumed down. Lewis is putting our test wire on here so we can power it up here in a minute. And we're ready to load this up with some Freon 32 ounces of 410A. So we're gonna get charged up now. All right, so we've got it all charged up, good. Now we did try to run it just a minute ago with our fancy test box, and here it goes. Outdoor fan came on, compressor 1's on, but we're having a trouble with the compressor 2 not wanting to run. So we're going to test here in just a second, and I'm going to verify that I do have 12 volt power going to that relay. I have taken and tied the 120 volt power to the compressor and forced the compressor to come on. So I do know compressor 2 does run. So right now we're just trying to determine whether we have a board issue or a relay problem. Typically, compressor 1 and outdoor fan come on, and then about 35 seconds after that, outdoor fan will stop, compressor 2 will come on, and then outdoor fan will come back on. It has not done that yet, so that tells us we got a problem with that control board over there. So with that being on right now, compressor 2 should have came on, and you can see my test box right here. Obviously, on and off power, high or low fan, AC or heat pump. I'm just happen to run it in heat pump. And then system 1, system 2 on, both are on. And then of course the light shows free sensors, not a problem. So at this point we've got a bad control board. All right, Lewis has got the new control board in this unit. And we did find when we took the old board out, guess what? It had gone nuclear. So at this point we're gonna go ahead, let's go ahead and turn all of our powers on. Fan on low, power's on. AC, system 1, system 2. Okay, outdoor fan came on. Compressor 1 is running. So here shortly, this fan should stop. Compressor 2 should kick on. And then outdoor fan will come back on again here in a second. We'll see what happens here. 30 seconds or so. Outdoor fan came off. Compressor 2 came on. Outdoor fan did come back on. So at this point, let me grab my amp meter here so we can see what kind of amp we got coming on this thing. And right here on compressor 1, we got about 10.93. Compressor 2, 11.2. So typically I don't want to be more than a volt off. And right now we're running real close. So we're doing real good. Got good amp draw on those. So we're gonna let this thing run here now. So testing this system is split zone 1, zone 2. So I'm feeling that right now, and I've got probably 80 degrees. The temperature's starting to come up right here. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm checking my charge. Now, we did put a new charge in zone 1, and I've got real good heat coming off of zone 1. So we know we got our charge. Of course, we weighed it in, got the weight right. And so now I'm just looking at zone 2 to see what kind of heat we're getting coming through that. We're starting to pick up heat, which tells me the charge should be run good there. So right as of now, we should have a good charge and everything. Obviously, in air conditioner mode, this side's getting cold. This side is real cold because we're split into zone 1. Zone 2 is starting to get colder. So the cold's doing real good. So now that everything's running correctly with the 2 compressors, fans are running, and we do feel like we have good charge, what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna shut it off. I'm gonna have Lewis put all the covers back on, and then we're gonna clean these coils real good. Make sure the drain, you can see it down there, is cleaned out real good. Once it's clean, I'll put all the covers back on, and then we're gonna hook it back up and test it, because you can see I've got my air is blocked right there, but with the covers on, it'll pull everything through there. We'll set it up and retest this. So we're gonna go ahead and clean the coils now. Okay, so we use this coil cleaner here, made by our friends down at Hills, down in Atlanta, Georgia. It's a good product. And so we're just gonna, this is a no rinse style. It's gonna cook that stuff out of there. So, and it's got a real good smell, which I don't have to worry about the customer complaining about. Some of those really stink bad, and so the customer kind of complains. So we kind of use some that's doesn't have a real lot of smell to it. So this will get everything kind of cleaned out of there. So there we go, and then Lewis will rake it out of there and we'll wash it out with a hose. So we got all the covers now ready to go back on. Got the coils look kind of nice and clean those coils look. Got all that ready. I got the drain cleaned out good. So we'll get all the covers back on it, and then we're gonna retest. All right, good morning. So Lewis and I are out here doing a bench test on this basement air after we've got the new compressor in. Obviously you can see now that I have the covers on, I've got the discharge open and free so we can see what kind of airflow we got. Now, Lewis is holding this, the thermostat in the discharge, and of course this is the ambient temperature in the shop that we have right now. Obviously 20-degree difference on the temperature, which is exactly what I want to see. I want to see about 20 degrees. That tells me if the charge and all that is correct, which I'm tickled to death with that. Now, we're going to look at this amp draw right here, and you can see that one's about 9.4. This one is about 10.76 amps. Now, yesterday I said volts, and I apologize. I really meant to tell you amps. I want to see about a 1 amp difference between the 2 compressors, no more than that typically. Now remember, we did use an LG style compressor compared to a Tecumseh compressor, so we probably will be off just a little bit. But obviously with our temp draws now, we are definitely getting a 20-degree difference on our discharge compared to the ambient temperature of the shop. So that tells me right there that we do have a good charge in both systems. So now that we're pretty tickled to death about that, and we've had this thing running for about 30 minutes or so, now that I've verified my differential temperature is good, we are going to go ahead and shut it off and go ahead and do the install and then retest in the camper. Okay, so Willis and I have now got the basement air in this Winnebago, and you can see where the temperature shows 45 degrees. Now, if I go in here and turn electric heat on and set this at 70, it's automatically going to go to gas because it cannot satisfy with the electric heat fast enough to do that. So for me to do this in a test mode, as soon as I turn this on, I'm going to get that down within 4 degrees of what the thermostat temperature is, and then every few minutes I'm going to come in here and just keep upping it, upping it, upping it. If I do that, then I won't have to worry about the gas coming on, and then I can test my heat on the ceiling differential. So electric heat, we're going to get that temperature down there real quick. So I'm at 40. I'm going to start at 48. It was at 45. So now that should allow the air unit to come on. So let's walk out here. Yep, just heard the ceiling fan come on. Ceiling fan just came on. If I had allowed that to stay at 68, the gas furnace would have come on. So that's the trick we got to do. So yeah, it's all running now. So we're going to let it run, check the differential temperature, and we'll bring you back here in a second. Okay, so Lewis is in here, been running about 30 minutes or so. 57, what'd you tell me, 57 on the... Okay, showing 57 on the thermostat. We started out, you saw the temperature there. And then this is the furthest, obviously, from the basement air. The very front's the furthest. So I've got my thermostat up in this vent, and you can see what the discharge temperature is there. So at this point, we are good to go. All right, so we're just finishing up with this Winnebago. Obviously, we had a bad compressor in zone 1, but on top of that, we also had a bad control board that was not allowing zone 2 compressor to come on. So a little bit involved with that, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you got any questions or concerns, please feel free to comment or reach out to me at our phone number. But thanks for watching.